Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Sideline Shenanigans podcast today with Jacob Maggard
Joey Simmons.
Jacob Mitchell.
Call me Hoppy.
and we're pretty excited about a mock draft season coming around. We always talk about after football, we have a kind of a gap because we get the NBA All-Star break right now, and then we don't have baseball season really kicking back into swing, until late March. So it's really draft season. That's what this is for me. I'm not the biggest NBA guy, and I really love the NFL draft. It's kind of the thing that, to me, is one of the most fun things to cover. Big time video here for us. Also, I want to mention that we will probably do these likely every Monday. That's the goal. And when these come out, it'll be different cast of people. But today, these are the four, myself and the three that we have on here. Just to hop right into it, we're going to each have a certain amount of picks. I will make the picks for some of the teams that we've kind of spread them out. I'll make a lot of the picks, and then they all have their specialty teams that they want to select for. You know me already as a Titans fan. I'm going to open it up with the first pick in the draft. We are doing a no trade mock. So to me, this is a spot that I think we will trade out of. But if we don't, I'm going to take Abdul Carter. I think Abdul Carter is, in my opinion, the best player in the entire draft. I think he is one of two players in this draft that are generational talents. And I know that word's hard to throw around, but if you watch this guy play, he reminds you a lot of a guy that was at Penn State and Micah Parsons. I think that the ability to come off the edge is at an all-time level. I don't think that there's been this many game-wrecking level edge rushers, too. This is a good draft for edge rusher. But Abdul Carter is at the top of that list. If you watched him in that playoff run, he was easily the best player on that Penn State defense, causing havoc play after play. And I think he's really boosted himself in this conversation. I also think it's important to mention that Jeffrey Simmons, which is one of the best players on the Titans, one of the guys that is kind of a vocal leader on that team, he said, if we're at the one, why would we not take Abdul Carter? Why would we not shore up the edge and really give him a game-wrecking edge rusher to rush beside him? To me, that makes the most sense for the Titans, and that's where I want them to go in this draft. Leading into the second pick, I'm also going to make here where we have the Cleveland Browns. I think that this is an interesting spot because I think in this scenario, Cleveland really wants Abdul Carter. They are trading away Myles Garrett most likely, but again, today we're not doing any trades, so they're going to be a little bit, I think that their plans will be shook up at this point. I think that they would be pretty upset with Abdul being gone. I think that the most likely role for them would then be Travis Hunter or one of the quarterbacks. I think that they're losing Jameis Winston to free agency. They don't really have cap to sign him back. He was their guy down the stretch. And Deshaun Watson has now re-aggravated his Achilles injury. So quarterback does make a lot of sense, but I think that they go with the generational player in Travis Hunter. I think that he's a lockdown corner. And I also think that he will be a big time playmaker for them because when you look at teams that don't have a super deep receiving room, this is at the top of the list of a need for them. And again, they need a corner as well. He fits both of those things. I'm going to go Travis Hunter here at the two.
All right, I'll be making the pick for the three for the Giants. I've been a lifelong Giants fan. Started out as a bandwagon back in 2012 after they beat the Patriots, but stayed loyal through thick and thin. A lot of thin, and not a lot of wins.
Yeah.
But I was a Daniel Jones believer. After that first drive he had his rookie year, I was like, man, we finally got our guy. After post Eli, by the way, Eli should have made the Hall of Fame. He'll make it, but side note. But it didn't work out. Drew Lock played great versus the Colts last game of the season. Had 5 touchdowns, I believe, 4 passing, 1 rushing. Maybe it was 4. Just fact check me. I don't care. Quarterback is still the biggest need for us personally. O-line for the past 15 years, 10 years, ever since I've been a fan, has always been something that we went into the draft and been like, okay, we have to address this. And I feel like every time we try to address this, i.e. Evan Neal, it just doesn't work out. But let's just go. I think we solve our quarterback problem here, especially with having the choice of Cam or Shedeur. I think it's a pick your poison type of guy. Who do you want? I like Cam. I think he's great. I like Shedeur. I think he's great. I think Shedeur has a higher floor. I think Cam probably does have a higher ceiling. With how bad our quarterback play has been the past 5, 6 years, I want the guy with the higher floor, but I do think he still has a higher ceiling. I'm going to select Shedeur Sanders. Obviously, really accurate. Didn't prove to win that much at Colorado. They completely overhauled that team, to be fair, but I don't know. I think he's a great player. I think he fits the New York market better than Cam Ward does. I think Cam Ward, he's got a good personality too, or lack thereof with this nonchalantness. But with Shedeur, I just think the New York market will love him, and the media will eat it up. So I think he's a perfect fit for the Giants if they had their selection between the two.
Yeah, I agree with you a lot on that one. I will also be making the pick for the Patriots here, but I want to mention that I think that's also where they would go in this selection. I think that there's been big time rumors that that is the landing spot for Shador. They have a good, market. That's a big thing. I mean, that's been something that Dion's pressed many times that he wants Shador to be playing somewhere where he'll be seen, and that's been a big thing for them. I think it just makes a lot of sense, especially with the two guys being gone before that, and obviously Travis Hunter would have been a gem there as well. And Shador does make a ton of sense. At four for the Patriots here, I think this is another team that's going to be upset with how the board has felt. I think they really need Travis Hunter. I think they really want Travis Hunter. And I think in this situation, they don't get him. I think receiver is a massive need, but I do not think they go Tedero McMillan here. I think they address what is the most pressing need, and that is protecting Drake May. You have to make sure that he stays up and stays healthy because he has potential to be the next guy for them. And I think they go Will Campbell here from LSU. Arguably the best tackle prospect in this draft class, a guy that could move down to the guard position, but I think he can stick and play there. He was very good in his time at that position. He's also played both sides of the line. He's played left and right tackle, wasn't, never even touched the other side of the line in high school. And then he gets to LSU, they bump him over, they say, hey, now you're playing this side of the line, and we're gonna use you there. I think Campbell will do that for them in the NFL. He's going to be their tackle of the future. And again, it just makes a lot of sense for him. After that, I also would pick in at five here. I think, again, this is a team that has big pressing needs. They also have a quarterback situation that's going on now that there's rumors that the new GM might trade Trevor Lawrence. If that happens, that could be something we really talk about down the line in one of our mocks when we're doing trades, because that would be a huge piece to be moved during this draft. Because if that does happen, and in the kind of scenario we're in now, maybe we see Cam Ward go here at five. But again, in this situation, no trades. They have really pressing needs at multiple positions on the team. I think the O line could really use improvement, but you don't pass up on a generational defensive lineman like Mason Graham. I think, again, this guy is a superstar player. I think he's probably the best interior defensive lineman in this draft, and he's going to be pressed by his own teammate, Kenneth Grant. Also, Walter Nolan, great defensive tackle, but Mason Graham is the guy, and he goes here at number five.
Jacob, I've been a lifelong Raiders fan. I mean, I've had to deal with the ups and downs, the 9-8 to losing the first overall pick. And this past season we got to watch, terrible quarterback play over and over and over again, no matter who we pick. And I think the only logical choice here would be to pick Cam Ward. I mean, he has shown a lot of promise, and I think the Raiders really need that right now. And I think they need a young quarterback to kind of put them back into the race.
Yeah, and I love that pick a lot for the Raiders. I think that that's a guy that I wouldn't even be mad if the Titans took it one. I think, to me, I like taking the high ceiling guy that has the super good potential. And I do think that Cam Ward has improved as a player. I mean, it's been amazing to watch his career. He starts at Incarnate Word. That's where he plays his first two seasons of college football. This is a guy that didn't have an offer to go play at an FBS school. He then goes to Washington State and leads that program to a very good season in the Pac-12. Again, he's a guy that looked like a superstar quarterback there. Then he goes to Miami. Of course, you saw what he did at Miami. This season. Was one of the better quarterbacks in college football, if not the best quarterback in college football, and had his team in multiple potential winning situations, and his defense blew the game. They were really, really bad defensively at Miami last season, and this Miami team was set to make a playoff run and just never made it because the defense couldn't get them there. Coming in at number seven here with the Jets. Again, I'll be picking this one. I think this is a position that is going to be really interesting. They would want one of these quarterbacks, I think, because rumor is Aaron Rodgers is 100% gone. He is not coming back. And it opens the door for the potential crazy pick of a Jackson Dart that could randomly jump up this board, a guy that really performed in the Senior Bowl. I don't think I'm going to have that happening today. I think that it would just be a pretty wild pick to me. I haven't seen the proof for him to be the seventh overall pick. And I think that there's a lot of options for them, but I think that they will end up going with an offensive lineman here. I think that some of the need on the offensive line isn't on one side of the ball, but they can take either side. They can take a guy like Kelvin Banks that can play multiple positions. And I think this is going to upset teams down the board that wanted offensive linemen, but I'm going to have them going Kelvin Banks here at the seventh overall pick.
Yeah, I'll have the eighth pick here with the Panthers. I don't really have much tie to the Panthers besides, proximity to home. That'd be my big thing on college football 25. But yeah, the receiving core is getting older. That's not something I think they need to focus on. Obviously, you see they're going to need D line, DB. I think they would have, decided to go Mason Graham had he fallen, but I mean that'd be a crazy type fall. But you see that sometimes in the draft.
Yeah.
But Leggett played pretty well last season. Not as great as people thought he could have played, though. Thielen's up there in age. If I'm not mistaken, he's the oldest receiver in the NFL right now. I'd honestly debate going Teteroa McMillan here. You could go Will Johnson here. That's they need a DB. So I'm going to take Teteroa here. I think he's a playmaker. They need playmakers. Bryce Young finally looked like he could be that guy for them at the end of the season. Obviously, that early season benching, I thought it would happen more like week 9, week 10. Happens after week 3, week 4 or something, really early in the season. Just hadn't performed. But when he came back, he played pretty well. Obviously not maybe number 1 pick, probably not better than probably better than Stroud this year, but he played really well at the end of the season. I think they'll go another season with him as their guy, and just provide him with playmakers and see if this is, if they're finally activating him.
Yeah, I think that's a great pick for the Panthers. Again, you get an X factor receiver on the outside. You also pair up him and Leggett for the future, and those guys. I mean, if Leggett can bounce back and have a good season, imagine that young receiving core with a young quarterback in Bryce Young, and at the same time, you're not paying any of those guys, so you can really build out the rest of the team with cheaper players in very important positions. At the 9 here, I think this is a position where the Saints would have loved Teteroa McMillan. I think that they're dying to get an outside receiver. They have Olave, but he just cannot play the X or the Y on the outside.
And he can't play. He just
Yeah,
can't play. All those concussions.
can't even stay on the field at this point. But the talent was there. We saw it with Olave. I think that they want that X factor guy. They didn't get him there. I think they shift to edge rusher. Now, this is a very weird edge rusher class because there's guys like James Pierce, who you could argue could go inside the top 10 because his speed ability is one of the fastest edge rushers in the draft, but he's a smaller guy. He's not going to help a lot in the run game, and I think that that's going to make him fall a little bit in this scenario. I like Mykel Williams here for the Saints. I think that Mykel Williams is very easily one of the top 5 guys in this class at the edge rusher position. I think the Saints would be really happy to get him there. And they do need edge help. They have aging players on that defensive line, and they don't have a lot of money. So they're not going to be able to upgrade the trenches in free agency. So I think they go with Mykel Williams in the draft to address that pressing need. At 10 here with the Chicago Bears, I think that this is one of those picks where they're going to go O-line to protect Caleb Williams. We saw last year he was getting sacked a lot. He went down a ton, and that hurt him. That was, part of the reason why he made a lot of the mistakes that he made at times. And I think that, to me, it's the easiest pick so far. It's Armand Membu. This guy's a freak out of Missouri. He's a guy that can play all over the offensive line. We could see him playing at tackle, guard, and heck, I don't think it's going to happen, but even maybe center. But I think he definitely slots in as one of those really helpful players for them at one of those positions on the offensive line. We're going into pick number 11 here with the San Francisco 49ers, a team that had kind of an underwhelming season. This is a team that I think that there was a lot of people that said this team could compete for a playoff run and maybe even go deep into it. They have a great coach. They have a quarterback who will be getting paid soon that has looked really good for the last pick in the draft. And they have big-time players on this roster that are currently injured, and we're maybe looking at potential career injuries in a Christian McCaffrey. To me, this is an interesting position for them. I think that they're going to want to either go down in the draft or come up for a superstar. At 11, I just don't love it. I think that they could go Ashton Jeanty here. Now, that would be an insane pick because who do they have? Christian McCaffrey. But he has tendonitis in his Achilles. That is a scary injury to have in one of the most important parts of your body to move up and down the field. I mean, we saw him try to play multiple times this year, and it just wasn't working for him. I think that Kyle Shanahan's a guy that could do that, but what do we know him as? We know him more as a defensive guy. He is very good, and so have the Niners' defense has been that way. I'm going to go Will Johnson here at number 11. I think that Will Johnson has proven to me that he can be one of the best corners in the league when he comes in. He was one of the best corners in college until he faced injury. He had I think he had 3 pick sixes before his injury, was leading college football. The guy is one of the best corners in the class. If he didn't have the injury, he would go inside the top 10 for me. But here he does go at 11. I'll also be picking at number 12 here with the Dallas Cowboys. And this is free. I mean, it's Ashton Jeanty, and it's Ashton Jeanty all day. They don't have a running back on the roster that is worth anything at all. And that's no offense to the guys that are there, but they're just not very good at that position. I think they ranked 32nd in rushing yards per carry. It is easily the most pressing need on their team is help for that offense. They go Ashton Jeanty, and they are ecstatic with that pick.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think shout out Frisco, Texas. He went to Lone Star High School. It's where some of my former roommates were from. But he's a stud, fits Cowboys I mean, he's a hometown guy. Frisco's right next to Dallas. But going into pick 13 here for the Dolphins, I mean, you see it. You see the first two. They need O-line. They need O-line badly. Tua gets concussed two or three times every single year, it feels like. You debate taking an outside lineman here. Josh Simmons, obviously great, but I'm actually going to go offensive guard. And maybe it is a little bit of Bama bias, but Tyler Booker played phenomenal this year. I think they have to address the inside of their offensive line, the interior. And I think they go Tyler Booker.
Yes, I agree with you big time on that pick. I think that Tyler Booker is very easily the best pick for them at that position. And you look at that draft board and you see him ranked 45th by PFF. I think that you take really no consideration into that. This is picking off need, and they have the worst interior offensive line in the NFL potentially. They have a guy hitting free agency that wasn't even very good that they can't afford to pay. They have to go offensive lineman there at that position.
I'll be taking number 14 with the Colts, and I take a look here at positional needs. I think we got to get some help for that offense and see if Anthony Richardson can step up and finally be the player that he was supposed to be 2 years ago and stay healthy. So I'm going to take Tyler Warren, give him a guy to throw the ball to and help in the blocking game with their running back who can hopefully stay healthy again this season. And maybe we can see that young core finally perform on the offensive end.
Yeah, I think that that's the perfect pick for them. I think that if you're coming into this draft as a Colts fan, Tyler Warren is unbelievable. He is a guy that could be a top 10 pick as a tight end. I could see him going as early as 7 to the Jets. He is a phenomenal player. He will be a very helpful player in that run game, like you mentioned. Very good inline blocking tight end and the best playmaking tight end at the position. I mean, if you watched him play this year, he was throwing passes. He was literally snapping the football and then running a route to score a touchdown in one of the games he played in this year. It's one of the most versatile players in college football coming into the league at 14 to the Colts. At 15 here, I think that there's a lot of ways that the Falcons could go here. They could use a receiver on the outside, but I don't think that they would take anybody but Tataroa at this position if he were to fall the way here, which, again, that would be an unbelievable fall. I think they go edge rusher here. I think they go James Pierce. I think they stop the fall of James Pierce down the board. Again, a guy that I think can go inside the top 10. He has the talent to do that. I just see the fall coming from his size. That will hurt him a little bit, but the Falcons are looking at that and saying, wow, we can get a guy that before the draft started and before the season started was considered a top 5 guy in this draft, falling to them at 15. Here at 16, I think another team that desperately needs an offensive lineman and not a super deep offensive line class. And I think that the Cardinals here will go Josh Simmons, Ohio State offensive tackle, a guy that, at times during the season, he struggled a little bit, but then he was just a monster down the stretch, faced some injury, but a guy that will come in and instantly start for them, protect Kyler Murray, who has faced injuries at times in his career. And again, a guy that has looked good when he's being able to play, and they address the need of getting a star player on the outside. Marvin Harrison did struggle at times during the season, but he really stepped it up down the stretch and looked like the kind of guy he was supposed to be. Now they get the guy to protect Kyler Murray and keep him healthy throughout the season. I'll be making the pick here at 17 as well with the Cincinnati Bengals. This is one of the teams that I've kind of looked in depth with because I think this is a team that if they had some playmakers on that defense, this team could have made the playoffs and really made a run. We just watched Joe Burrow have a really, really good quarterback season. This is a guy that arguably was an MVP candidate, and his team didn't make the playoffs. This defense is really, really bad, and a guy that could really help them on the interior is Walter Nolan, Ole Miss defensive lineman, a guy that was an absolute one-man wrecking crew in the interior for Ole Miss. He was out there a lot. He is one of the better run stoppers in college football, and the dude is just a monster up the middle. Really help out a very, very bad defensive line for the Bengals that are really going to have to worry about some players leaving too, because Trey Hendrickson with a contract coming up, again, a must-sign guy for me. And they're losing T. Higgins potentially on the outside. I think that this position is very easily to me defensive lineman or wide receiver, but here I go Walter Nolan. Next pick here at number 18 with the Seahawks. Their GM has been very, very vocal about he will not take an interior offensive lineman. He said a million times, I won't do it. He said, I don't think that there's any value in taking a center or a guard because I can just pick a tackle and move them to center or guard. What I think they do here is they pick a tackle. I think they take Ariante Ursary, the Minnesota tackle. I think he goes here at number 18. I think he shifts down and he plays guard for this Seahawks offensive line. And again, he said it a million times, I'm not taking a guard. And to me, Ariante Ursary is one of those guys that can move down on the inside and be a really effective offensive guard in the NFL. Next pick here at number 19, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're going to be psyched when this guy falls to them at number 19. Mike Green, the edge rusher out of Marshall, one of the best edge rushers in the country, in my personal opinion, the guy that led college football in sacks. And if you watched his Senior Bowl tape, he took a guy in Josh Connerly, a guy that is ranked inside the top 30 as an offensive lineman, and put him on his rear end in a pass rush, and it took him about a second to get to the quarterback. He is a freak of an edge rusher. He is probably one of the most dynamic edge rushers in this draft, and to be honest, the only reason he's available at 19 is because he played at Marshall, and he doesn't have a ton of past playing time and a lot of examples for how good he is. But again, one of the guys that I think will definitely be a steal at number 19 to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
I'll be taking number 20 pick with my favorite team, the Broncos. And I'm looking at the board here, and I really want to take an offensive piece. We need something to help out Bo Nix, but I'm very, very enticed by Malachi Starks falling this far. I think he's the best talent left in the draft. We already have Pat Surtain locking up one player. I think even shoring up that defense more. You look at the last time we won a Super Bowl, we had a horrible offense and a great defense. Defense wins championships. I'm taking the best available player in Malachi Starks.
Yeah, and I love that pick for them. This is a team that just lost their best safety to free agency, and they go in there and they add the best safety prospect in this draft in Malachi Starks. Again, we mentioned it before this draft even started. As a group, we were kind of talking about it. He struggled a little bit last year, but again, it was one of those down seasons where it wasn't really a down season. It just wasn't a flashy season. A guy that I think that if he'd had an amazing season, you could have argued him up there in the range of like a Kyle Hamilton when he went 14 to the Ravens. But he does fall to 20 here, and I think that's a great pick for you and the Broncos.
And I'll be picking again back to back here with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Once again, I think I'm just going to go with who I think is probably the best player left and get a second receiver to pair alongside to hopefully help the Pickens. All right, I'm going to go with Emeka Egbuka.
Yeah, I think that's a good pick for the Steelers. I think that they struggled a little bit with their receiver position because they took a guy in Roman Wilson last year that was supposed to be a guy that would help them in the slot, and what did he do? Not play. Didn't touch the field. There was some issues off the field. There was also some injury issues. Now they add Emeka Egbuka, who, again, can be a superstar receiver. We saw him do it at Ohio State in an amazing receiving core last year with him, the best freshman receiver in the entire country, and Jeremiah Smith, and Carnell Tate. There was three guys in that receiver room, and he still got crazy good work. And again, just won a national championship, boosts him up this board a little bit to go at pick 21.
And if they can get a quarterback later on, he might help with the development of a young QB.
I'll be picking here at 22 with the Los Angeles Chargers. And again, this is a position to me that just makes a ton of sense. They need playmakers for Herbert on the offense, and I think they go Colston Loveland here. You understand the connection. This is a guy that was coached by Harbaugh when he was at Michigan, won a national championship with them. Makes a ton of sense for Colston Loveland to go off the board here at 22 to his former coach.
Yeah, here at 23 with Green Bay. I saw the Packers said this offseason. Well, not really the Packers. It was actually Josh Jacobs recently said that they had a bunch of wide receiver twos on their team. As you see, their biggest needs wide receiver. I think Christian Watson's great. I think Jaden Reed's pretty good. I think Romeo Doubs is good. And then even their tight end, man, Luke Musgrove, I think he was good. I do think receiver is a big need for them. Luther Burden's still on the board. Came into this year being the number one or number two guy. I think he's a perfect fit here. Give Jordan Love a weapon.
Yeah, and I like that pick for them too because, like you said, they've struggled to find the guy that can be their one. It's been Watson at times. It's been Dobbs. It's been sometimes you get Reed in there every once in a while. And Reed was like one of those weird players where if you played fantasy football last season, Reed had 3 games where he had like 30 points.
Yeah, he's a touchdown merchant.
Yeah, just went off one week, and then he just disappears. I do think it'll be interesting to see what Luther Burden does in the NFL. He was a slot receiver in college with Missouri. He's a guy that is a route magician, one of the best route runners in college football. But his ability to make these deep plays down the field, it's sometimes limited because of his not so amazing speed. But again, I think with him being the kind of route guy that he is, he'll get the ball and make big time plays for them when they need him to. Here at 24 for the Vikings, this is a team that I could see go a multitude of ways. I think that they need some help on the offensive line. I think that they could even go running back, and there is one here that is appetizing that you could see them take, and I don't think Vikings fans would be upset about it. And again, they really need help all across the board. It's one of those teams that they looked so good all season. We get to the playoffs, and then you realize that a guy like Sam Darnold can't lead you to a Super Bowl. I think that they're going to go defensive line here. I think that we'll see what happens this offseason with them. I think they'll go a different route at quarterback. But I'm going to go defensive line. I think there's a lot of options at the defensive line position. I think Kenneth Grant makes a lot of sense. I think Tylee Williams makes a lot of sense. But I'm actually going to go down the board a little bit to Derek Harmon, the Oregon offensive lineman, a guy that is a monster on the inside, a very big run-stopping defensive tackle. Probably won't play 100% of snaps. No real big D linemen do. But a guy that was kind of limited at times. But he is a game wrecker on the inside, and they need that on their defensive line.
All right, with the 25th pick for the Texans, I think I'll probably take Donovan Jackson. I mean, if you look at the Texans games last year, CJ Stroud was just running around, getting tackled about every play. He had, I think, 52 sacks, 51, 52 sacks. And that's just unacceptable with your star quarterback. I mean, you see it with the Bengals. If you can't, guard your quarterback, then you're done. You're not going to make it anywhere. So I think that would be a very smart pick for them there.
Yeah, and I like that you made that pick there because, again, this is a guy that was playing some offensive guard for them in the regular season at Ohio State, and then moved out to offensive tackle and looked like one of the best tackles in the country in the playoffs. It's a guy that has a ton of versatility, and the Texans need offensive linemen. Now, the tackle position on one side is really shored up with Laramie Tunsil, but you could go right tackle, and he could also play either of the guard positions. That was his original position in college. Number 26 here with the LA Rams. I think that there's a lot of ways they can go. I think that D line is really shored up for them. I think that that's not somewhere that they're really looking. I think they look offensive tackle. If they keep Matthew Stafford around, they're going to want to protect him because he is an older quarterback. The more you start taking hits at older age, we see injuries that end guys' careers. I think they go Josh Connerly Jr. here out of Oregon, a guy that is a really big offensive tackle. He will stick there, in my opinion, in this draft. There is a ton of tackles that are going to move to guard, but he's one of the ones I think will stick at tackle and can be a vital player for them in the offense next season with Stafford sticking around.
All right, I'll be picking number 27th with the Baltimore Ravens, and I'm going to look to shore up their defense and take Jahdae Barron and hope that can help them get over that playoff hump. I think their offense is good the way it is. I think that Henry will hold out for one more year. They need a receiver, but they can push that on and hope that Zay Flowers can stay their number one option. So I'm going to go with the defensive piece.
Yeah, I like that pick a lot for them. You get a guy across from Marlon Humphrey that can be a lockdown corner. They also have multiple secondary players leaving in the offseason to free agency that they likely won't be able to pay. So this just makes a ton of sense for them. Jahdae was the best corner in college football last year, arguably. You can argue that the guy that went towards the top of the board and Travis Hunter was up there with him, not even getting recognized for the Thorpe, which was pretty crazy. But Jahdae played really good during the season, and towards the end of the year, you could really tell how much of a lockdown corner he was. Going into pick 28 here with the Detroit Lions, this is a position where I could see them go a multitude of ways. This is a team that's really honestly talented at every position. You could see this team potentially go quarterback just because what if Jared Goff is not going to be around for much longer or they don't want to pay him when his contract comes up. But to me, what makes the most sense is take best player available. Why not just make your team even better? To me, the best player available in a position of need for them is Shemar Stewart. This is a guy that could go towards the top of the board in this draft class. He is a freak of nature. He's one of those guys that when we watch him play football, you saw at times the unbelievable athleticism of Shemar Stewart. He's also a very, very big edge rusher and a guy that you put alongside Aiden Hutchinson, and now your edges are really shored up for the future and just improves the defense that's already pretty solid with the Detroit Lions.
Yeah, here at 29 with the Commanders. That's the NFC East rival of the Giants. Great season for them, obviously. I think Jaden Daniels is obviously their guy. Great wide receiver one, McLaurin. Defense played really good this year, too. And Cliff Kingsbury's offense, that college-style offense that really helped Jaden Daniels, just elevate his game. Not really even elevate, just translate his game from college to the NFL so easily. I think they look to defense here and go to corner. Here, I'm going to select Sivan Ravel from East Carolina. Athletic freak. He's a lockdown guy. Did have that injury late in the season, but when he plays, he's fantastic. Hopefully he can recover from that injury. I think that's what the Commanders will be hoping for. But he was slotted as like a top 20, top 15 guy, one of the best corners besides obviously Will Johnson, just because of how he played early in the season. But that injury did push him further back through the board.
Yeah, and you compare him to Will Johnson, it's almost comparable what happened to the player and why they slid. The
Mhm.
reason that Will Johnson's not going inside the top 10 is also because of an injury. Now, Will Johnson is not facing an injury that could, alter his career, whereas Savon Ravel is facing an injury that's going to be pretty serious. This is the kind of player that if he gets back healthy, it's an absolute steal at 29, freak corner that can really help out this defense.
All right, I'll be picking number 30 with the Bills, and I'm absolutely ecstatic to take Matthew Golden. I think that the Bills really need to shore up their defense to get past the Chiefs, but I think they also need to shore up their offense, and I think this is what the fan base wants the team to do. I think the world wants this team to get Josh Allen some weapons and see what he can really do with them. So, this is a pick for the fan base and for Josh Allen more so than it is for the Bills because I do think their defense could use some help as well. But we'll take Matthew Golden.
Yeah, I like that pick a ton for them. Matthew Golden is a guy that down the stretch of the season, you saw how much of an X factor type receiver he can be. This is the kind of guy that they need on the outside. They don't really have an outside weapon that's looked very good at times. I mean, you saw Mac Hollins make some plays in the playoffs, but how much do you want to rely on Mac Hollins to be your star receiver? Keon Coleman faced injury during his rookie season, also was kind of underwhelming at times and wasn't really the guy that they were expecting to get in the second round last year. So this just makes a ton of sense. They have Khalil Shakir, who was pretty solid in the slot receiver position. Now you go on the outside, you get Matthew Golden, a speedster that can help out Josh Allen a ton.
At the 31st pick with the Kansas City Chiefs. And as you can see in the Super Bowl, I mean, their offensive line just got rattled. I mean, there was nothing they could do, and they were getting, deep shots over the top too. I mean, there's a lot of different ways this team could go in this draft. But I really think that they'll go corner here, and I think they'll pick Trey Amos from Ole Miss. He was an elite corner. I just think he could really give them a lockdown defense.
Yeah, I mean, they need help on the outside. We saw the top get taken off multiple times in that game by some receiving guys that, that weren't big time threats. I mean, we saw A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith do it. Those are guys we expect. But when the top's getting taken off by Dallas Goedert down the middle of the field, a guy that, again, don't get me wrong, he's a great tight end, but he shouldn't be beating you deep. They just don't have a lot of, in general, secondary help. And honestly, there's been some rumors that they may go trade back for Tyrann Mathieu to just try to make one last run with him back there roaming around the backfield because that was obviously a key piece when they were pretty good. Um, Moving into the last pick here, we have the champions, the Eagles. Of course, this is a team that Super Bowl looked easy. They didn't look like they struggled at all. I think that they would be absolutely ecstatic. I mean, this is an unbelievable steal of a pick. This happens every year for them. Every single year they get a player that falls to them. Jalen Carter fell to pick 9 when arguably was the best player in the entire draft. They got Nolan Smith at pick 30. Nolan Smith starts for them. They've paired him with Jalen Walker on the inside. Now, I'm going the opposite route. I'm going that rival team in the SEC of the Alabama Crimson Tide. They go Jahad Campbell to replace Zach Bond, who is a free agent, a guy that I don't think they're going to be able to pay to come back. I mean, we see this happen every single offseason where a player doesn't come back to the team because they can't afford to keep him. I mean, Zach Bond's about to get a big time payday, and I think they go Jahad Campbell here at pick 32 and shore up that linebacker position for years to come. All right, that's going to do it for our mock draft 1.0, the sideline shenanigans mock draft. We're going to come back to this on draft day and say, man, we just nailed every single pick. But looking at the board here, I wanted to mention teams that I think got away with a really good player. I think number 19 with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. To me, that is one of the steals of the draft. I think Mike Green at 19, they would be. And there's no reason that guy should fall, but it just in this scenario, teams take out of position and you get a freak at 19, and then obviously pick 32. I think that the Eagles, a team that just won a championship, is adding Jahad Campbell, the best linebacker in this draft class, and replacing Zach Bond, who they won't have to pay now, which I know they want to keep him around, but I just don't think they're going to be able to afford him. And you replace him with Jahad Campbell, who's a freak of a linebacker. Joey, when you're looking at this board, is there anybody that stands out to you?
I feel like everybody kind of sees like a player in a team and see them together, kind of. And I have that with number 18 with Arante Ursary. I mean, I don't know why. He just feels a lot like a Seahawk. I saw him when you were pulling up the board, saw him, he was ranked like 45th or something,
Yeah.
maybe even 55th by PFF. And I've been watching a few mock drafts myself by Bengal. So, a very professional mock drafter. But no, he is pretty reliable, all jokes aside. I really just feel like he just feels like a Seahawk. Now, draft day, will that happen? I don't know. It just kind of gives that vibe off for me. I also liked Malachi Starks with the Broncos. I think he kind of fits that frame. And I like my own pick at 29 with Ravel. I mean, I think he's a stud. I think he's one of my guys that I just see really working out. So yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of those that you just said make a ton of sense. I would also like to mention that pick 20, I think Hoppy would be pretty excited about that, getting Malachi Stark
Yes, I would.
in that secondary. Jay Mitch, if there's anybody on the board here that you see that just kind of stands out to you as a great pick.
They all suck. I can't lie. They're terrible. No, I think I like James Pierce Jr. going to the Falcons. That's just the absolute steal for him. I mean, they desperately need a lot of things for this team. I mean, you have an aging Kirk Cousins. I mean, I love the guy, but he is old. You have a old rookie who they drafted this year. Terrible.
He's basically a
But
veteran by this point.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But I think it'll be great. And I would also like to agree with your pick for the Eagles here. I mean, that's just an insane steal for them. I think that they kind of got away with robbery here. I mean, I think it'll be great for them. I cannot lie.
Yeah, and again, we've seen the Eagles do this year in and year out. Howie Roseman is just an absolute genius. He knows exactly what to do when it comes to his pick. And again, just unbelievable to see Jahad Campbell available at 32. And when we were looking at the board, I know PFF wasn't super high on him because they say this isn't a good linebacker class. He stands above all of them. He is a good linebacker. And honestly, a guy that can be a playmaker at any position on the field. You can move him around. You can move him to edge. You can move him to an outside linebacker position. And I think he can slot in and be, like I said, the Zach Bond replacement and even play middle linebacker for them. So, yeah, again, phenomenal pick for the Eagles. Hoppy, looking at this board, again, is there anything that you think stands out?
Well, I really liked the Titans going with Abdul Carter and passing on a quarterback at the first pick. I think it's more important for them to work on the future and getting that generational player. And I'd like to point out Josh Simmons. I think 3, 4 years down the road, he could be the guy that we're looking back and saying this was the steal of the draft. Um, I think that he's a good offensive lineman, and he'll help out that team a lot.
Yeah, I agree with you a lot, actually. That's a good point you bring up because Josh Simmons only falls in this draft because of his injury. When he was playing, he was talked about at the same liking of Kelvin Banks and with Will Campbell. They were saying who's going to be the top tackle in this class, and Josh Simmons was easily in that race. Only an injury pushes him down. It's not a super serious injury. It's an injury he can come back from and be really effective. And I love your little shout out there for Bill Carter because, again, I think he is the best player in this draft. I think he is a game changer. And if you watch the Titans play football, 32 sacks is what we had the entire season. There is no way your team can win championship football with 32 total sacks. And one of those come from 9 of those sacks come from one player. So it's really bad. So edge rusher is again by far the biggest pressing need for us. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Again, this was super fun. This is just 1.0. We have a ton of plans for the future. We have Dalton and Julio that will probably join us later on. I want to say a big thank you to Hoppy. I want to say a big thank you to Jay Mitch for joining us tonight and helping us out with this. They were able to pick up in a pinch when we didn't have another option because we had some other guys step out, and they were able to come in and make good opinion. This is a good group of guys that know football, so I know that this is fun for all of us. And we'll all look forward to this season anyways. You know, draft season is super fun, and we all have teams that, well, 3 of us have teams that really need players to get much better, and Hoppy had a team that found the guy last year in Bo Nix. But Joey, if you have anything else you want to add on to the video, pal.
Yeah, thanks for watching today. Hoping my Giants make a good selection here. I think that we're in a good position with 3, getting one of Travis, Shedeur, or Cam Ward. So as long as we get one of those 3 guys, which I think we will, as long as we don't trade up to number 1, I'll be pretty happy. Obviously, I know Maggard wants otherwise, but yeah, thanks for watching, and I hope to see y'all on Mock Draft 2.0.
Honestly, I'm happy with the Raiders pick here. I mean, we desperately need a quarterback. I think that was a great pick for us. But I mean, if we don't get Cam or Shedeur, I would not be very upset. We have a lot of big names in this draft class who could help us. I mean, our roster is full of holes, and we need anybody that we can. So, as long as we pick a player, I will be happy.
Yeah, and Hoppy, if you want to finish us off with any remarks you got, pal.
Yeah, man, I just want to say thank y'all for having me. I look forward to coming back in the future as well. And I liked our pick in this draft. I wanted the Broncos to get an offensive piece, but the defensive piece just fell to me in this situation. And I'm also want to say I'm looking forward for when Tim Tebow returns back to us as a tight end.
Yeah, get Tim Tebow late.
Hey, I think the Mets might get him first.
Yeah, the Mets might have him playing some baseball out there. A guy that has many talents, Tim Tebow. What a guy. Again, thank you guys so much for watching. Again, like and subscribe always helps boost the channel. This is our first video back since the national championship game. I will say a quick thing about that. I think that was a fun football game. I think that we saw some pieces we took in this draft play in that game, and we're big time contributors. Like Emeka Ibuka and Donovan Jackson, those guys are big time playmakers for Ohio State. But again, thank you guys so much for joining us, and peace.